Okay, nice.
Yeah, of course. So I just want to explain a little bit of how this is going to work. We had a few frequently asked questions submitted by the quotes board about the job hunt and what that's kind of going to look like in the next month or so. So we're going to go through and kind of answer some of those frequently asked questions first. And if everyone wouldn't mind just keeping your mics muted so we don't have any feedback. But meanwhile, if we don't answer any questions that you have, there's a chat. You can click on the bar at the bottom of your screen, and there should be a chat box that will pop up on the right side of your screen. Enter in any questions there, and at the end of our webinar, we'll make sure to answer all those questions during our open Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Whitney Gonzalez. She is the founder and CEO of Radiate Social, and Ali Beemer, who is the public relations representative at Universal Orlando Resort, and they're going to share just a little bit more about their backgrounds.
All right, well, hi everybody. Thank you again so much for joining us. Like Rachel said, my name is Ali Beemer, and I'm a public relations representative at Universal Orlando Resort. I'm originally from Tampa, Florida, and moved to Orlando to go to UCF, go Knights, charge on. And I got a degree in interpersonal organizational communication with minors in marketing and mass communication. I graduated in 2014, and upon graduation, I was interning at Universal and was able to get my first job at Universal in the marketing department. And then a year later, I moved over to the PR department and have been there ever since. I've been there for 6 years now. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Whitney Gonzalez, and I have my own business called Radiate Social. We do everything from social media to content creation and influencer marketing. I got my degree from Southeastern University in Lakeland, Florida, and my major was journalism, public relations. And then I had an internship at the Polk County Tourism and Sports Marketing, and that's how I met my first boss that was at an agency called Voce Communications. And at my first job, I worked for Disney and PlayStation and a couple cool brands like that. And then ever since, I've been agency, government, back to agency, so a little bit of everything, and now doing things on my own.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll get started with our questions. So Ali, if you wouldn't mind taking this first one. Everyone feels just kind of uncertain right now with everything going on with the coronavirus. So what do you think the job market is going to look like come May?
Well, that's a really great question. It's so interesting because things are changing every day, sometimes hourly. And really, you know, we're in the same boat with all of you. All of us professionals are in the same boat with the students. We don't know what to expect. And we're really trying to prepare for the future because this is so new for all of us. Nothing like this has ever happened before. So I think right now the best worst answer, I guess you can say, is that we don't know. And you know, I guess that's not really comforting, but what I can say is that if we do see, you know, a lot of pickup in the economy and things start to die down from, you know, a COVID-19 coronavirus perspective, you will definitely see an uptick in people that need, you know, advertising services, PR services. Those businesses that were, you know, had furloughed or laid off employees are going to start hiring again. So I think when it comes to, you know, preparing for May and even for the future, whenever this does blow over, I think we do want you all to be prepared. So I think the time to prepare is now. Really start, you know, looking at your portfolio, looking at your resume, and preparing for, you know, any of the jobs that you see currently and jobs that you may want in the future. And also, you know, this is a great time to also look at companies out there that and what they're doing from marketing and a PR perspective, and, you know, seeing, do I want to work for that company? Are they doing good things for their employees? Like, this is a time for you to also, you know, develop your own case study and see, you know, where you want to be and where you want to grow and start your career. So again, there's a lot of unknowns, but I think the best time to prepare is now, just in case that if May does come along and we do get to a place where we're starting to, you know, see more jobs available, I think you're best to be prepared rather than, you know, be behind. Whitney, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think the most important thing right now for everyone, students and professionals, is to be flexible and just roll with the punches. So I would say, like Ali and I were chatting earlier, that we don't think anything's really like set in stone ever. So you can't ever get comfortable. Just try to build up as many skills as you can during this time. Try to get as much exposure to as many industries and types of projects as possible. So when the time comes, you are even more qualified than you are right now.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And when do you guys think that students should start applying for jobs? Is it good to do now? Should they wait until this kind of blows over?
So it's an interesting time because, like, for Ali and I, we both started applying like right after we graduated. So basically spent that whole first summer applying for our first jobs. But you guys don't have to go to class. You don't have to be in a particular location right now. So I would start applying right now and really consider other markets that you want to work in. And a lot of companies are hiring remote employees, so you don't even need to be in a certain location. So I would start applying ASAP. Like Ali said, you'll be competing with not just other students, but also professionals who have maybe been laid off or taking this as an opportunity to find another job.
Awesome.
And I would also say that, you know, there's a lot of places that, you know, have paid internships as well that you should also consider. So again, it may not look like, you know, a first job, but I know of many people that have gotten a paid internship right out of school, that have you know, companies that have accepted, you know, just out of just graduated interns, and they've turned that into full-time hires. So I think, you know, being open to the possibilities and, you know, being flexible in, you know, what you're looking for, I think will definitely help you.
Right, I did that.
Perfect. And I know as students are applying for jobs and having different interviews, many people are afraid to say no to the first thing that pops up, even if it's maybe not something that they're interested in doing. And with economic forecast as it is right now, what would you recommend? Should a student take the first thing that they're offered, even if they're not that passionate about it, or should they wait until something that they're passionate comes along?
Well, I think first of all, you should do your research into a company and kind of see yourself in that position for at least a couple of years before you accept any employment, because just the process of training and hiring someone is like a big deal. So if you like, I feel like if you take a job and then leave too soon, it might be in poor taste and burn a bridge. But if you take a job just because you kind of need it to get by, it doesn't mean that like 6 months later or a year later you can't pivot and get another job. Also, if it's not maybe your favorite thing, but you need it to fund your lifestyle, you can always build that dream job or build the skill set for your dream job outside of work. Ali, did you have something to add for that?
Yeah, I would say, you know, like networking with, you know, people in, you know, in the job that you would have is also so important. Like I've gotten, you know, when I was doing internships, I got, you know, my first internship, and then I got the other three that I had because of the person and, you know, I had connected with in my first one. So I think, you know, just being open to, you know, not getting your first pick and just being able to, you know, make connections and take that seriously, I think will definitely help as well.
All right. And as students are looking at that, possibly looking at offers, what do you think they should expect as far as pay and benefits when accepting a job in this industry?
So it definitely depends. You know, in Central Florida, you know, it depends, you know, base salaries for, you know, PR practitioners and also, you know, advertising associates start from $32,000 to $40,000 a year. And again, that depends on the company as well. And also depends where you're located. So if you're located and you relocate to New York or San Francisco or another big city, that will definitely change. You know, and then also, you know, looking for benefits, that's also a big deal. You know, you could make a lot of money, but there could be no benefits involved when you make a decision. And that could really hurt you in terms of how much you have to pay out of pocket for those benefits. So I think weighing both benefits and pay equally is also very important, like a 401k, health insurance, tuition reimbursement. If you ever want to go back and get your master's degree, those are all things that, you should definitely, take into consideration when you're not only looking to apply for a job, but if you're interviewing for one, make sure that you discuss that in your interview, and because those are very important.
When taking those different things into consideration, if someone is trying to accept a job offer, but maybe the salary isn't where they need it to be, or those benefits isn't where they need it to be, are students able to negotiate? What should that process look like?
Definitely negotiate. I think Whitney will agree with this. We talked about this earlier, but it's all about negotiating with a sense of purpose, not for the sense of just more money. So if you're going to negotiate, definitely take into consideration what you bring to the table. So your experience, where you've been, where you've had internships, and if you have any certificates, all of those things really, bring value to a company. So definitely know your value and know what you bring, and make sure you bring that up when it comes to negotiations. And, again, know that when everybody gets out of this COVID-19 situation, a lot of people that are, have been laid off or that want to look for another job are going to be, possibly applying for the same job that you'll be applying to. So again, I would definitely say, the benefits and the pay should kind of be weighed equally for you. Like for instance, if you have a great benefits package, but it's not necessarily the salary that you want, like maybe it's a couple thousand less than what you really want, just think about that in the long term. Our benefits, what you would pay in benefits way more, than what that couple of thousand would, suffice. So just keep that in mind when, you negotiate, and also when you are applying for jobs as well.
Whitney, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that was straight to the point.
Perfect. And now with everything that's going on right now, we've heard a lot of different rumors, and like Ali just mentioned, layoffs, possibly even in this industry in Orlando. Would either of you be able to tell us how much of that is just rumor, or is it something that we should be worried about?
So it's not rumor. There are layoffs, but I wouldn't let that scare you. Again, we're all living in unprecedented times. So I think, the fact that a lot of people are having layoffs, it's happening in every industry. It's not just happening in PR or advertising. It's affecting everybody at this point, especially hospitality. Hospitality is taking a major hit. The cruise industry is taking a major hit. And there are some, industries that aren't, like government, they're not taking it at all. They need all the help they can get. And also healthcare. So I think it just, it depends on the industry, but for some, it doesn't matter. So for instance, at Curly and Penn, Curly and Penn is our agency of record at Universal. We have them on a retainer, which means we pay a lump sum of money to have them help us with certain projects throughout the year. So regardless of, if we don't have the money or don't have additional funds to do anything at Universal right now, we've already paid them and they're already helping us. So that definitely helps when it comes to not laying off employees. But I think it just, again, it depends on the industry. It depends on, the company. You're seeing it a lot around the news of companies that are retaining, employees, and a lot of CEOs that are taking pay cuts to help their employees, and some that are not, and some that can't afford to. So it just depends. But again, I wouldn't let that scare you. It's all going to come back. We're all going to come out of this stronger and better professionals. So I think, just being aware of what's going on and being prepared for the future, I think will definitely help you and, make you better professionals in the long run. It will make us all better.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think something else that's a good thing to pay attention to right now, like Ali was saying, is which companies are retaining employees and continuing to pay them, and which companies are laying people off, when you consider like crisis management and how companies are handling this crisis. So it's both a lesson in crisis communications and also a lesson in really like brands showing their true colors and how important their employees are to them.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's a really good point. And if I can go back for a second to something that Ali mentioned earlier, with other professionals possibly being laid off right now, how can students prepare themselves and their resumes to stand out in a possible applicant situation when they might actually be competing with someone who has more experience than them?
Like I said earlier, just try to expose yourself to as many projects and industries as you can, and reflect that accordingly on your resume. Like, now's the perfect time to work on your resume. There are a bunch of like videos and things you can watch for the latest trends and things that HR managers look for on resumes. But basically, I think if I were in a position to hire someone and it was like an experience difference, if you as a entry level employee can show that you understand the industry and have done projects that kind of show your understanding of the basics of the industry, I might consider to hire you over someone else, or you might be more competitive than you would have if you didn't have any sort of experience.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And I know students have a lot of questions, especially I know when I went through the UCF program, deciding if they want to go into in-house or agency or government or any of those different options. But right now, with what's going on in the economy, is there a sector of public relations that would be considered like more secure that students should look for when applying for a job?
I mean, as you can see, I mean, it's just sad to say this, but nothing is secure. That's definitely something that we're seeing right now with, every industry. But, don't let that scare you too. Again, this is going to pass. We are going to get, there's going to be a time in the future where this is completely blown over, and we can just reflect on it and learn from it and be better. So I think when it comes to choosing an industry, choose it wisely. Again, use this time to like Whitney said, look at companies, look at what they're doing with their employees. Look at what you like and what you don't like out of an industry, and something that really interests you and that you're passionate about. This is a time where we can all really soul search, and I think this will definitely benefit you guys as you go into the job market, because you're going to have a lot of time to weigh your options and to think about where you really see yourself. Whereas, seniors in the past that have just used a lot of semesters to gain as much internship experience as possible may just want the job that comes around first, and may not think about, where they see themselves in the future. So I think you guys definitely have an advantage in terms of, where you see yourself and understanding, what companies you like, what you don't like. But again, nothing is secure. It really depends on the industry, but at the same time, again, all of this will pass and all of us will be better for it. So just take this time to look for, what you're passionate about.
And as I've seen, I know a lot of professionals will sometimes take that passion and decide to open up their own business or go into freelancing. I know, Whitney, that you started your own company. Should students look into starting some freelance work if they're unable to find a job?
Definitely. Again, that goes into just doing as many projects and doing as many, being exposed to as many industries as possible. So freelancing is always a great option. Even if you have a full-time job, just have other projects that you can work on and continue to expand your experience. It's really important to never be comfortable. So in terms of that security question. So even if you've been in what seems like a secure industry, like anything can change from one day to the next. So it's just always important to kind of stay up to date with trends and skills. But yes, definitely pick up freelance projects. So something I will say is really important when looking for freelance work is to make yourself, like, put yourself out there and let people know what types of projects you're available and looking for. So I just think that the more you kind of tell people this is the type of work I'm looking to do, if you know someone looking for someone, please send them my information. That's been huge for me in terms of referrals.
Mhm. Okay. And do you think right now with the current economic situation that companies will be looking to hire freelancers right now?
Definitely. So again, it'll pivot with the industry and the times, just what's going on right now. But I think people will probably be looking for more people to do short-term project work. And again, just think of people when they need help in a pinch. So I definitely think that freelancers will continue to have work during this time.
Okay. And I know you, as you mentioned earlier with your background, you started off in a couple of different places before you jumped into your freelance career. How would you suggest a student start off their freelance business without the kind of connections that you had?
Well, I would suggest, like, you don't have to do anything official in terms of like getting an LLC or anything like that until you're making a ton of money. But I feel like having a website is very important, having a portfolio, examples of your work, and just really showcasing what your skill set is. Definitely posting on social media and emailing the people you know, just staying top of mind. When you do want to start the business, and you can be open about it. You can say that you're starting a business and looking for experience, maybe take on a couple pro bono projects to build your portfolio, or maybe like do some discounted work as you get started, obviously telling them that you're just getting your feet wet in certain things. But I feel like that's a great place to start. And I mean, start with the people you know and ask for ideas or recommendations that they may have as you start out. You'd be surprised how many people are happy to support you on your new endeavors.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And I have one last question before we kind of open it up to everyone. So if anyone has a question that they haven't heard answered yet, feel free to put it in the chat box. But I did want to ask you, what is your advice for a student who wants to stay hopeful despite receiving multiple rejections for job offers?
Yeah, we're all human, right? Rejection always hurts. It's not easy to take, but it's something that you should definitely, get comfortable with and have an open mind about. All of us as professionals have experienced rejection in our career, and they haven't been easy, but I think, it makes you a better professional at the end of the day. When you do get rejections, again, be open-minded and, ask for feedback. If you got rejected from a job and you heard from the HR manager and, you have talked to them in the past, ask them about, anything you can do to, better prepare or, be better on the next one. Or, again, just, ask them why. That's a simple question that a lot of people don't ask. And I think that will better prepare you for the next one that comes along. And, it's always, you always have to stay hopeful, especially in this time where a lot of things are uncertain. Like we all have to stay hopeful, so again, when you receive those rejections, again, be open-minded, don't take it personally. It's just business. And know that, everything happens for a reason. So you're going to find the job that you're meant to have. And again, all of us, I know I can attest to this. And I know Whitney can attest to this. We've all experienced rejection and it's led to better things. So keep that in mind too, as you go on your job search, and know that we're all here for you. We're all here to help you. If you have any questions, if you want us to look over a resume, if you want us to look over like a portfolio, like all of us, not only in quotes, but at FPRA are also here to help you too. So again, just be comfortable with rejection, but know that it'll lead to great things.
Yeah. And then when you ask for feedback, I feel like you're showing that open-mindedness and showing your determination to continue to improve. And who knows, I mean, it could have been a very close, a close call in between the two candidates that were chosen, and maybe they'll have an opportunity in the future and circle back with you. So it really says a lot, and it's pretty admirable.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm also open to helping out any way that I can. If you did want to get in contact with any three of us on the FPRA Orlando website, you can just go to the board of directors and our contact information is all there. So just a heads up since we were talking about that. Let's see, we do have a few questions here. Jennifer was asking, myself and a lot of students were in the middle of a job or internship process and are now on hold. How should we go about following up and planning ahead when things aren't really moving forward right now?
It's a really good question. I think, again, it's just, understanding, we're all going through this. So just being open-minded and, if you are waiting on something, that's definitely up to you. You can definitely continue to wait, or you can apply to other things. Or like Whitney said, you can definitely start to, pick up some other work that will give you experience in the meantime. But I think, right now there's a lot of things, that are on hold from a job and internship interview perspective. So I think, just trying to, again, if you want to follow up, you're more than welcome to, but I think you'll get probably the same answer across the board. But what you could do is, try to find something in the meantime that maybe will better prepare you for the interview, like, or, updating your portfolio, updating your resume if you have additional experience, or if you have other classes that pertain to that internship that may help you. And then also taking, any pro bono work that you're seeing that you may, be interested in. And also networking too, like network a lot, because again, somebody could be hiring, either it be paid or unpaid, and it may not be listed. So, continue to follow up with your contacts and networking, go on a Zoom coffee meeting in the morning, during this time of social distancing, and just, again, keep trying to prepare for the future.
Perfect. And Sammy also had a question here. What is an appropriate way to start salary discussions without sounding like you're only in it for the money? I've never had an interviewer be upfront about pay, so it's felt awkward to start the negotiation.
That's a good question.
I feel like I haven't had an interview where we started the salary conversation in the interview itself. For me, it's always taken place after the fact. But I feel like the perfect way to start that discussion, personally, I just don't have experience doing it in an interview, but once you do get your offer and they give you a certain salary, you can always consider what other professionals are making. So do your research on Glassdoor and ask around what other people are making in your location as a starting salary. And then also consider that those first offers are someone with the typical for someone with a typical skill set for that position. So if you have any special skills like second languages or any special certifications or experience, you can always lead with that when just kind of making them know that you're worth a little more than the typical entry-level employee.
Yeah, and it's the same with me. There's never been a time where we've discussed salary in the interview process. So I think, if they start the conversation, completely fine. But if, negotiations for salary usually happen when you have the job offer. And when you do have the job offer, I think it's definitely, it's going to come up. It's going to, they're going to start the conversation and say, well, we're going to give you this. And you can definitely say, thank you, this is great. Like, I appreciate, the time that you're giving me. I have this, and this. Is there any way that we can negotiate? And then start from there.
And you can always ask for time to review the offer letter. You can take like 24 hours and then get back to them. So you don't need to like have your response ready on the spot.
Yeah. That does bring up a good question of how long should that review process look? I know some companies have given a week, some companies give 24 hours or want something the same day. What's a reasonable time frame to ask for?
I would say 24 hours. I mean, if you need more time for a special reason, I'm sure they'll be understanding, but I think you'll have been thinking about it, like, as you wait to hear back from the job, like you already kind of have a figure in your mind. So I think 24 hours is about typical.
Agreed.
Okay. Alexa also had a question asking, would you recommend applying to multiple internships at the same time? And if you get accepted to an internship that you're going to have to postpone but would love to be involved with, how would you address that conversation?
This is a great question because this happened to me, which is crazy. So I was in my last semester at UCF. I had gotten a I had applied for multiple internships, and I had, gotten accepted to a couple, and I had to, formally accept one and not formally accept the other. And you just have to kind of get comfortable with that conversation. Whereas, this is where I'm going, I really still want to keep in touch with you in the future. Like, this is definitely a way for you to not burn bridges, and remain professional. And, everybody prefers a phone call rather than an email. So I would definitely suggest that you all take advantage of that. I know, doing phone calls is kind of old school, but I know if somebody were to reject an internship, where I work, I would really appreciate them calling me and talking to me about it. And that really shows initiative. And then after I got the internship at that agency in spring, I was also in line for an internship at Universal. And I really wanted that. And because I had applied for an internship at Universal 3 times and I hadn't gotten it, and I was really, really wanted to work there. So, especially in meetings. So I started still interviewing for it. The interview process took a really long time. And I got accepted to the internship program at the end of January. I had already started my internship with that agency that I interviewed with back in September, for about 2 weeks. And I really had to make a totally difficult decision on, do I stay here and, make these people at this agency, happy and, still continue to, work here for free? Or do I go to an internship that I've always really wanted, that will pay me, and that, I can hopefully leave this agency professionally and not burn any bridges? So I had to sit down with my internship coordinator and I had to say, I'm sorry, I have this other opportunity that's come up. I have to cut my internship short here, but I really appreciate all you did for me. I'd still love to keep in touch with you. I'd still love to go out to coffee with you and, continue to maintain a relationship, but I have to take this opportunity to better my career, and they understood, but it was better than me just emailing them or not showing up, so that would have definitely burned a lot of bridges. So I think, those conversations are never easy to have, but I think when you do them, it's really going to help you in the long run, because I'm able to have those tough conversations now. It still is nerve-wracking, but I'm in a much better position because I've done them before. And also, being professional about it, I didn't burn bridges there. I still, have somebody that works there that I'm friends with, so I think, definitely not burning your bridges if you do go into that situation is definitely key. Sorry, long story.
That's great. Stories are always the best teachers, so I love it personally. I've also heard of students who, if they aren't graduating that semester, maybe accept the spring and then offer themselves to the other employer for the summer. Do you think that's also an option as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Whitney, jump in too, but again, it's going back to the original question. I've applied for multiple internships throughout one semester. And, again, having those tough conversations that you have to have just when you get a couple lined up, you have to make those decisions. But going into that, you could definitely say, I can't do this for spring, but I'd love to do it next fall. Like, is that something that, you would be open to? I think, that's a really great way to not only, help yourself professionally, also have something else lined up for yourself in the future.
And you'll save them sometimes too. Like I know I've
Yeah.
hired interns in advance for the upcoming semester, so they won't have to do another round of interviews before that time comes up.
Perfect. And we have another question here. What qualifications or skills do you think we can look into right now that could help us stand out? Are there any resources that you would suggest they look into?
Yeah, so that again also depends on what industry you're going into. But there are some basics. So like in creative, if you're looking to do some Adobe, if you go to the library, I know the Orange County Library System has great classes that you can take to build some skills. I know there are also a lot of online education resources like Udemy and Lynda. The library actually gives you free access to Lynda with your library card, and there are just a ton of classes on there. If you're going into social media or digital advertising, Google and Hootsuite have some resources for you. So just keep an eye out. And then I know the certificate for public relations is something that you can look into as well. Ali, would you add anything to that?
Those are all great. I definitely agree with the Adobe Creative Suite. I think, all of you should, I would recommend that to all of you. That is so versatile. I use InDesign as a PR professional, like at Universal. Like all of us use some type of Adobe products. So I would definitely say be familiar with those. They're actually offering a lot of great deals right now, not only for students, but for professionals as well. So I would definitely take advantage of that. And then also, there are also some certificates out there with other universities right now that are pretty inexpensive. Like there's one at the Florida Atlantic University that is a certificate in hospitality. I think it's like $900, but it's a certificate that may help you if you want to go into the hospitality industry, and whether it's PR or advertising, that can definitely help you as well. So there's many resources and a lot of great things that you can do with this free time.
Mm-hmm. Were there any specific things like that, courses or certificates that either of you took to help yourself stand out in the resume and application process?
Not necessarily. I feel like for me, it was more community involvement. So I was the student president for my FPRA chapter, always been involved in FPRA. I've also been on a couple of boards of directors, and I feel like that has kind of added to my experience in a way that a certification would have.
I agree with that. I was on the Girl Scouts Club of Citrus. I was on their volunteer board for a couple years. I was involved with DECA. I'm a very big DECA advocate. So if you guys know what DECA is, if you don't, look it up. It's great. And because I was in DECA in high school and in college, so I was very familiar with that and volunteered a lot with that organization. And then I didn't have a certification, but I got to know Adobe Photoshop and InDesign. Those are really helpful for me. And again, it's not something that people are necessarily looking for you to have, but it's something that really stands out on a resume if you have some extra skill sets that your competition may not.
Mm-hmm. And as we're discussing resumes, Sammy was asking if there's anything that we should not put on our resumes or something that's a must-have.
That's a good question too.
This is a weird one. I don't know. A lot of people put their addresses on their resume. I don't recommend that at all.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Yeah, it's also not, it's just not safe for you, so I think taking that off is fine. All we need is your email and your phone number. That's all we need. And a lot of people really make, resumes are great when they are stylized and look really fancy. But a lot of times you lose the contents and making it so fancy. So for instance, I don't need to, again, if you have your picture on your resume, that's fine. That's really not necessary. But sometimes when you get so stylized, again, you lose the content. So the contents are what really stands out and what we're really looking for. So putting that at the forefront of your resume, I think, that's definitely what I'm looking for. Whitney, what do you think?
Yeah. And for things that I wouldn't recommend having on the resume, I would add like a general summary that doesn't really say much of anything. If you have like an objective, that's straight to the point. But generally, I wouldn't have an objective or a summary at the top of my resume. I also wouldn't have a section that says references available upon request, because I feel like that's just kind of dated at this point. So I feel like if they wanted references, they would have asked you for them. And then something else that I would add to my header would be the link to my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, and an online portfolio too. Like,
Yes.
that, if you have a website, put that on there too.
Do you have any suggestions for students who might not be as coding savvy but still want to make that online portfolio? Do you know of any good resources?
Squarespace and Wix, I think, would be good places to start. You don't really need to code anything. It's kind of like a drag and drop website designer.
Yeah. I don't think when I had an online portfolio, when I was, starting out and applying for a lot of jobs, I had Prezi. Prezi, I don't know if that's used anymore, but I still have an online portfolio with Prezi. But I don't know, I just liked the platform and, liked how, useful it was in presenting information. So that's what I use. But I think Wix and, Squarespace are really great resources.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that. We have another question here. I'm currently applying to jobs right now. What is some advice that you have for trying to connect with someone on LinkedIn who works at the company you want to learn more about? Is there a way that you can connect with them in a genuine way while still expressing interest in the position?
Yeah, this is something that I recommend to all of my interns. So people love to talk about themselves. So if they obviously be considerate of their time and workload, but asking for an informational interview, I think, is a great idea. And yeah, I feel like you can be honest about like, hey, really admire your career path, would like to learn more of what you did along the way to get where you are. And you can say that you would love to work for a company like that in a position like theirs. And I feel like the response is generally positive. And if they can't have coffee with you, maybe they'll recommend someone on their team who can.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. A lot of times people, and I'm sure Whitney has this too, is people will reach out and say, oh my gosh, like I really want a job with you, or can I work for you? Or, and you've never met them before. Like this is a cold calling type of deal. So I don't recommend that at all. Usually when I get those, I don't answer them just because that's just not very professional. I'm not going to recommend somebody for a job if I don't know them. Definitely get to know the person first. If you're, if that's your true, passion and your, true destination and you really want to work there, get to know the person first, get to know the job first. It may not be something that you end up liking at all. I've had that before where I've had people shadow me and say, well, I don't think PR is for me, which is completely fine. But that's a way for you to, really network outside of your internships and really get some hands-on experience. And then, connecting with them, asking them for, in these times of social distancing, a virtual coffee, is a great way to just talk to them, connect with them. They're definitely way more open to that. And if they can't do it, you can definitely send them some of the questions that you have, and I'm sure they'd be willing to help. A lot more people are willing to help than they say or that you may perceive. But, when you approach them with that you just want a job, then it's definitely something that is a turn off.
Yeah.
Perfect. Julie had a question about the resumes again. Can high school involvement such as DECA still remain on your resume, or would something from high school be out of date for a professional resume?
So kudos to Julie. I love that you know what DECA is. Yay, Julie. I mean, again, if you're all seniors, I think, and Whitney, tell me if you agree, I think high school is a little bit far reaching, and also it depends on what it is. How involved were you with DECA? Did you win any awards? Like, did you go to states? Did you go to nationals? Like, those are very specific things that, you could put on a resume that could have longevity. If you were just a member, that may not have as much longevity. And it also depends on what year you're in. So if you're a senior and you want to put something on your, from high school on your resume, it has to be very compelling because of how long ago it happened. So again, it has to, be a national, statewide, any type of award level if you wanted to include that.
Yeah, or be relevant to the type of work you're trying to get into.
Mm-hmm. And would you suggest that type of stuff go in like a separate section of the resume where there's like work experience versus like community involvement? How would that look on a resume?
I would say maybe other experience.
Yeah, additional experience, or if it's awards, like you could have an awards and certificate section, like that could fall under that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And Alexa wanted to ask, are there any precautions you should take if you are the first intern for a company?
Ooh.
I guess like get a really good understanding of what the position would entail. I know you won't know exactly what you'll do every day at a job as an intern, but having a contract that you sign with them or basically like the offer that highlights everything you'll be responsible for, the types of work you'll do, how many hours you'll work, how much you'll be paid if it's paid, just have all that in writing. I feel like that's something that I would want from an internship, and that's something I've done for my intern.
Yeah, when I did my first internship, I was only the second intern they had ever had. And, again, they really kind of, asked me what I wanted out of it, which was great, but some employers may not ask that. So, like you should definitely be comfortable with asking the question of, again, like what you said, what am I expected to do day to day? Like, what other opportunities are there, that I can be a part of? Like the first internship I had was with a small business. It was only a business of 3 people. And she did a lot of, proactive networking and had a lot of community involvement. So something she did ask me at the beginning was, is networking something that you're interested in? Are you interested in community activations and, stuff like that, or philanthropy? And I said, yes, I'm very much interested in that. Can you take me to networking events? And she took me to every networking event she had, along with other things that pertain to the internship. But I think asking those questions of, is this, what can I get out of this? And what else do you do that, we could definitely work on together? Like having those conversations is, key.
Mm-hmm. And I know we've talked a lot about networking during this call. I know we're all involved with FPRA, so I know we might be a little biased with FPRA, but what are some other resources that students can look out for, and what were some personal experiences that you guys had with networking that got you to where you are today?
I mean, in addition to FPRA, obviously there's PRSA, there's AMA as well. I would hop around, especially as you're trying to meet people and establish some connections. Again, so the LinkedIn networking, I feel is something that could be very successful. Yeah, those are 2 that I can think of, a couple that I can think of right now.
Yeah, when I was a student and about to graduate, I joined Ad2 as well. Ad2 Orlando is a big one as well for any advertising, just advertising focused majors that are here with us. Yeah, and again, FPRA, PRSA are really big. I mean, a lot of the internships I got in my, academic career were from networking. Like I said earlier, I got my first internship at Intern Pursuit. And that was, oh gosh, a long time ago. And then after that, I, went to all these networking functions that my internship, supervisor took me to. And through those networking functions, I, had interviews with internships lined up right after the other. So I think, going into, networking and not being afraid to network is so important. So many people want to talk to students, and I know networking can be really, challenging and also just very, daunting at first. But I think once you get into it, you'll find that it's much easier. And a lot of people just want to talk to you and just want to get to know you.
Mm. And going back to that idea of resumes in high school, how far back should work experience go on a resume?
I'd say as long as it's relevant. I would go as far back as any internships you had in college. But like for me, for example, my job through college and a little bit after college was I worked in valet parking at Universal. So I was a team lead. So that's something that I had on my resume when I was getting my first couple of jobs, because it showed my leadership skills. But if I were applying for a job now, I probably wouldn't have that on there because I have other more relevant experience. So it depends on the position that you're applying for.
Yeah, and something that, candidates often don't do is that they have to tailor their resume, to the job description when they're applying for a job. So not a lot of people do that. It is very time consuming. Sometimes just filling out applications and redoing resumes for, tons of jobs that you're applying for can be a full-time job in itself. But you have to do that in order to stand out and in order to move to the next level. So, continue to do that, but also, there may be some experience that you have that's relevant to one job versus another. So just make sure you read that job description and include whatever is relevant in that job description on your resume. Make sure that's present.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of job descriptions, I know personally when I was looking for jobs and trying to apply, some of these open positions say that there's years of experience required. Do you think employers would consider internships as part of that experience?
I would think so.
Yeah, I think so too. And honestly, it depends. Let me know if you agree, Whitney, but I think it really depends on the internship and what you did in that internship, and what you can apply to that current job. So for example, if you were to apply to a management level position, it may require 5 to 7 years of experience, where 5 to 7 years of internship experience may not translate to a management position. So just be realistic, when it comes to applying for jobs and understanding, the level of experience, you could apply to your internships, but also, the amount of experience that you have in the field is also very important too. So, but, again, it depends on the amount of internship experience you have and what you did. And also the amount of education you have as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Whitney, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
No.
All right. We had one more resume question here, because I know Ali was talking about the content is more important than the design, but how much information is too much? Is it too much for a student to have a more than 1 page long resume?
I would say yes. I probably won't read both pages of a resume. And then in terms of too much information, if people are reading through hundreds or even dozens of applications and yours is just a block of text, probably not going to read everything. So I would recommend really getting concise with the highlights of your experience, and maybe using bullet points of all those highlights instead of just copy pasting your full job description, because nobody wants to read that.
Mm-hmm.
And put yourself in, the recruiter's shoes too. When you look at your resume, is it easily digestible? We all, have, we all are looking for easily digestible content nowadays in our daily lives. So look at your resume like that. Can you get to the point very quickly? Can somebody from the HR department or even just the advertising or PR department see very clearly that you looked at the job description, you understand the job, and that you're perfect for the job. So yeah, make sure that's present.
I know we only have a few minutes left here. Do either of you have any parting advice that you would want to share about the job hunt or resumes, anything in general?
I think we missed one question from Julia about contact information. Was that for after an interview? Are we able to get their contact information if we want to connect with them after the call?
I think that was asking about your contact information. I included a link with all of our.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry.
No problem.
Well, to that note, I would say if it were you asking for your interviewer's contact information, I feel like that's perfectly acceptable. Like if you do an internship interview or job interview, always ask for their card or go on their website and get their information and send them a thank you note. That is one way to really stand out from the sea of candidates, kind of highlight what your, like a highlight from your conversation, how it reinforces your interest in the position. So I think thank you emails. Some people do handwritten notes, but obviously it'll take a couple days to get there. But usually I would do the same day, send a quick thank you note to everyone who interviewed you, thanking them for their time and just kind of re-expressing your interest.
I would definitely say the same. When I, a couple of jobs that I applied for, and again, it depends on, the job is and if you have to, fly somewhere to interview for this position. But I oftentimes wrote my thank you notes in my car after the interview,
Mm-hmm.
so that I could immediately, write them so that they were completely top of mind and that I could give them to, either HR or, the person at the front desk right away. So that they didn't forget about me. But in terms of just overall, I guess advice, I would say don't give up, like keep going. Don't let this COVID-19 process scare you. All of us are going to overcome this and you're going to be better because of it. I know I've been saying that a lot, but it's really something that we should all reinforce because again, we're learning as we go as professionals, and you will only be better professionals by watching all of us work and watching, the good, the bad, the ugly, and taking it with you wherever you go. So again, keep an open mind, keep, updating your resume, keep updating your portfolio, keep hustling, and you'll be fine.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for joining us and for answering all of our questions. I know that in the coming weeks, we're going to have another call like this about internships and all the questions surrounding that. And then for everyone, just make sure that you're staying up to date with FPRA and Quotes. I know that both of them will be sharing some resources. Specifically, Quotes will have their Quotes charges on page, which will a lot of resources for students in the next few weeks. So just make sure to keep up to date with that. But thank you all for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.